Welcome everyone to Talks with Meah podcast, entertainment edition. This is the only show that brings you the journey and breaks down the journey on how to become the next media mogul with weekly episodes from the entertainment industry's biggest game changers. Today we have a multi-talented guest. Deshawn Plair is in the building. She is the owner of Flower Avenue Films, where she writes, produces, and directs. She is also a three-time NAACP Image Award winner, and she has produced on Peabody Award-winning Showtime documentary We Need to Talk About Cosby, along with docuseries like Unsung and American Gangster Trap Queens. Welcome, Deshawn.
Thank you so much for having me. Super excited.
Yes, I'm excited to talk to you because one, I love docuseries, but also like the ones that you've worked on, specifically Unsung, American Gangster Trap Queens. Like for me, Unsung is at this point legendary when it comes to Black music and culture. And then American Gangster Trap Queens, I was low key addicted to it. I was like binge watching these women and these scams.
I know their stories are amazing. And, American Gangster Trap Queens was a spinoff from the original American Gangster. But when they originally aired, they only had male, males who were like criminal masterminds, like at the height of their game and that. And so, they were like, well, there was a lot of women who were some, queen pins, and they were doing a whole lot of stuff. And the show really wanted to show like a redemption story, aspect of it. So that was amazing. And I got to work on that with my producing partner and co-owner, Flower F Film, Sade Onyade. So it was wonderful. It was really great to work on that series. So
nice. I love to start my interviews with this question on how long has your journey been? How many years has it taken for you to get to this place right now?
wow. I I originally moved. I originally moved to LA to be in front of the camera, and so when I went back home, I'm from Michigan. When things like weren't working out, and I went back home, and I came back. I came back in 2013, and I decided I'm going to learn how to be behind the scenes because those are the people that are making the decisions. And so I would say from 2015 until now, this is like what took me along this journey. In order to begin to have some higher positions on productions. But I started off as an intern. I started off PAing. I've worked many years for free. I've worked on friend shoots, anything that I could just learn, grab hold to. I did it because, it was difficult. I didn't see people that were looking like me, making decisions. I didn't see a lot of people like me in a sense, like on screen or had my backstory. So I was like, if I really want to get into those rooms, I have to begin to learn and operate and work behind the scenes because, those are the unsung heroes. Those are the people making decisions, for that. So I would say for like the last 9 years.
Okay. I mean, that's so true and so relatable. And I feel like a lot of times, like, kudos to you for being able to pivot and actually like excel within the pivot because sometimes people feel like defeated when their original like goal and dream isn't accomplished. So I think that says a lot. I would love to get into Freaknik and your role as a supervising producer. So, Freaknik started as a college spring break picnic in 1982, and it evolved into this like cultural phenom. For you, like, how did you come on board to this project? Like, how were you approached about being a part of it?
So the showrunner Geraldine Porras, we had worked together on Cosby, the Cosby doc for Showtime. And so when she, got this project, she was like, you know what, like I really want to bring you on to do the story, to do the writing aspect. And I was like, oh, I'm sold. I had already heard all the urban legends about Freaknik.
Mhm.
I was exposed to it on the show, A Different World. And then, in my generation, Sister exposed me to it. That was one of my favorite episodes. And they went down to Atlanta, okay, and Maya was performing. So it was super exciting. So, you heard all the urban legends, all the stories, but because, I hadn't participated in it, I didn't really know the true origin story. So after doing a lot of research, and then also speaking to the founders of Freaknik,
Mhm.
students from the DC Metro Club who were there at the AUC, the Atlanta University Center, students from Morehouse and Spelman, I really got to learn what the original intent. And like you said, yes, it was students who couldn't afford to go home on spring break. And last year in 2013, it was the 40th anniversary of the first one. And it was started just by 50 students, at a park in Atlanta. And it grew and metastasized to hundreds of thousands of people descending upon the streets of Atlanta. So it was just really, I don't know, it was like a full circle moment for these founders to see what they had birthed, this cultural movement. And they had no idea like what they were doing at the time. They were just trying to make a fun, safe space for students who couldn't afford to go home during spring break. And look what it became a cultural phenomenon.
Yeah, yeah. It kind of like this documentary kind of reminds me of Summer of Soul, the Questlove documentary, just around the how one musical moment kind of just like transformed and became a bigger thing. And so I'm curious to like hear your perspective on like why these like Black stories are not really told or like hidden, and like what is your perspective on like why these stories aren't really out in society a little bit more?
I think just as it relates to a lot of Black stories, I feel like, people don't understand the impact, the cultural impact. And a lot of, networks who, they were interested in the project, but maybe passed, they didn't know if it had a broad enough appeal. But when just the announcement dropped last year, the world went bananas. And so I think that having projects like this, having projects like Summer of Soul, is proving that these stories need to be told,
Mhm.
because a lot of times they think that there's no crossover appeal. That's something that we hear all the time when we have films. They'll call them Black films instead of just films. How about they're
Mhm.
just films? Oh, there's no crossover overseas, but there are so many people that relate to this culture. It's so many people that they take from the culture, with it. But yeah, these stories have a lot of significance. They have cultural impact, and they do need to be told. But I think a lot of times they feel like they don't have broad appeal. But it's like it's the Black Woodstock. But then
Exactly.
it was more than just a street party. There was, fashion, there was music. It was so many artists that got their start at Freaknik. Even Killer Mike, who's in the film, he speaks about selling his mixtapes at Freaknik and meeting people. And then that was the
Mhm.
start in the trajectory of his career. Think about the label So Def. They really monetized, off of Freaknik. So it was a cultural phenomenon, with it. So it has broad appeal. But I think stories like this, they aren't, told in the beginning because they think that they don't. And they learn very quickly, how people support, and they learn. And last night, well, for me, the premiere, happened, and it was amazing to see the audience reaction. So,
Nice. So getting back into like producing and creating Freaknik, what do you feel like for you? One, like how long did it take to even go through all of this footage? And then also like what were some of like the most surprising and most interesting moments for you when it came to like actually producing this project?
um, wow, when I say it was a lot of footage, it was a lot of footage. So,
Mhm.
you know, one of the surprising things, to me, it was interesting because so many people had footage and it was in the garage and it had been there for 20, 30 years. And, they didn't even know what was on the tape, half the time. So when we watched it, we really had to be cognizant of that. We had to be respectful, we didn't want to be salacious with it. But, I think the most surprising things, that I saw or that I learned in a sense were that people were going and they had no money. Like people were like, they would literally jump in a car with their friends, have 20 bucks to their names, and they would survive an entire weekend like with it. And you saw so many stories, but they had so much fun. It was so much joy. And even though so many things happened, it was like a safe environment in the
Mhm.
beginning, you know.
Yeah.
Um, things changed, but in the beginning, it was so safe. And I don't know today that I can say, "Oh, I'm gonna jump in the car with my friends, have $20, I'm just gonna make it." So I I learned so many stories, saw so much stuff like behind the scenes. A lot of things didn't make the cut. We would have had a parental advisory rated X version of it. But it was just so surprising that people were just, so free. They were fun, with it. And yeah, like they just had this sense of freedom behind it. But it took months and months and months to go through the footage. Yeah. And like I said, no, like Killer Mike said, nobody can say that they partied harder than their mom and daddy because they partied hard. Um, it was great to see a generation like truly having fun.
Hmm. Yeah, I love that without the cameras and the facade of having to
Yes.
put on. Yeah.
Yes, because like I really wish, I'm of a generation where I had a time where there was no social media. So when I grew up, and then now I'm exposed to it, but there's a whole generation that all they know is social media. And
Hmm.
so to be able to have that freedom to be able to just be able to live life, to, make mistakes and it not be constantly in your face, was a blessing. And this is what, this film is about. And it feels like you're getting an inside look, like you were there, like almost like, like a fly on the wall perspective, because all the archival footage that we have. And so we got some really great hidden gems and we were really excited. Some stuff that was out there and then some stuff that people haven't seen. So we really prided ourselves. We wanted to show, some, just some hidden gems that people hadn't seen or any footage that wasn't circulating around on the internet.
Nice. So let's get back into like your role. And for those people that don't really know what a supervising producer is, what were like your responsibilities and duties, and how involved were you with the creating the tone and the message of this documentary?
So the supervising producer, my role in this project, I was a story producer. So I was the writer. So in a sense, I worked with the editor, the director and showrunner, and we crafted the stories. So once you go out into the field and you shoot the interviews, your job to, write and do a story, you take all of the transcripts from the interview and you piece them together in a sense like a script. So I know a lot of people when they do like narratives, script writing, like there's a script that the actors have to do, but in documentary there's interviews, so then you have to craft that and then you have to piece it together with archival footage and you have to tell a story from beginning to end. So it's reading thousands and thousands of pages of interviews. It's looking through hundreds and hundreds of hours of videos and then crafting that story together and then working on creative, like, hey, we want to do this graphics, we want to do these images, we want to do that. So yeah, you work as a team, with it. But I was the sole story producer on the project. So you can say in documentary filmmaking is the writer.
Nice. Would you say that going through the transcripts and like really piecing the stories together was probably the most difficult part of this project?
Yeah, it was the most difficult part. And then if there weren't things that you could like bridge together, it was like, going out and getting additional interviews. And then I'm having to like, write questions, for the interviewees, like, hey, make sure you ask them this, that, so we can kind of bridge that gap, finding different people. Like if you need another point of view or perspective, I'm doing that research, finding the people, going out and supporting the team. So, it's more than just like reading through your transcripts if you don't have it and, you're able to go back out. It's like, making sure that you write those questions, making sure that, that you're getting the pieces that you need. So it's like you're really solving a puzzle. And so that's really, that's something that I really love because it's a creative, it's just a creative outlet because it's like, all right, how do I solve this puzzle?
Mm.
How can I do this? How can I pull from this person? How can you do that? And then you want it to be balanced, right? You want to make sure, that you can, pull a little bit from, each person so that, everyone feels like, they were involved in it. So it is like, it's a master puzzle. But it was really fun. It was fun to do. It was difficult at times because there's so many things that you want to include.
Mhm.
When it comes to the story, it's a layered story. And they only give you 90 minutes. Come on now. I got to put 40 years and 90 minutes, so it was tough, but I think we did a great job, touching on some stuff. And I think people, I hope you're pleasantly surprised as you watch the film.
So if this was actually a docu-series instead of a documentary, how many episodes do you feel like you could have told the story of Freaknik?
I mean, we could at least did an 8 to 10 part, because
Mhm.
there's so many there, like you can go back to the origin story, in 1983, you can go to when it transitioned from a student event and was mainstream and everyone was coming, student or
Mhm.
not. You can talk about the crime. You could talk about the political
Mhm.
aspect. You could talk about the economic structure and how the money that was poured into Atlanta, so it was so many things. You could talk about the Olympics, the controversy. You can do a whole episode on the fashion, honey. They were giving. We missed out. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I grew up in the 90s, but like I like that 90s fashion, like it's like none other. And so it was just amazing. So you can just do an entire hour on fashion and hair and just the cultural impact on that. So like, there's a line in the film where Mark Lamont Hill talks about just as you look over the course of time, even from the, early 80s and, until the late 90s, and just kind of see how fashion, just evolved, with it. So it was amazing. So there's so many different components that you can do. And I really wish we had a full season, but we did what we could do in the 90 minutes. And yeah. And you
And
can
I'm
have a whole
sure
episode on the traffic, on just the traffic.
I
That was
was reading a
amazing.
few stories about that, so I definitely believe that. But I know that the documentary is going to be great. Like I know what you guys put together is going to be so like interesting to see. Like you said, the era of time and like the importance and the impact that it had on all of these artists and the culture in general. You said something
Exactly.
earlier about you love the challenge of piecing things together, and it's like a puzzle for you. When it comes to documentaries in this world, is that something that is that the thing that keeps attracting you to doing documentaries and docuseries? Is that challenge of putting together these stories?
It is. So I worked on the docuseries in different facets, right? Like I started off doing clearance, and that was still a puzzle, like learning how to clear the music for the show, or finding archival footage. When I did research and did archival, that was putting a piece to the puzzle. Or even when I worked in the field and shot recreations and did that, that was a piece to the puzzle. And then now even stepping into my own innocence as a story producer and writer of it, solving the puzzle. I think it does, because I also work in the scripted space,
Mhm.
as well. And so you kind of really do have to have a love for documentary, because it's different. It's a different muscle. It's a different part of your brain that you're using when you're, in the narrative space, meaning a traditional like film with a script. Like there's already a blueprint. There's already a script made. But when you do documentary, it's like you're pulling it out of the air. You're creating a story as you go. Yes, you might have an outline, but things may take a turn and you might not get what you need. So then how do you continue to tell the story? So yeah, it is. It's something that really draws me. I love a challenge. I love being creative. I love just, making something out of nothing. So yeah, it's definitely the part that keeps me going.
Awesome. So, going into our next segment, one of the questions I love to ask is what has been your biggest boss move throughout your career and journey so far?
I would say my biggest boss move is not giving up when I could. um, Honestly, it's not, I wouldn't even like say a particular project. I would say truly not giving up. I am, a foster kid. I grew up in foster care. My mother had me when she was incarcerated in prison. So being born in prison, being a foster kid, I was like a statistic, but I didn't give up. So my biggest boss move was moving out here, no family, no money, but just with a dream with God. I'm a big believer. And just, making a way. So that's my biggest boss move, that, I was not a statistic. Mama, I made it. And yeah, so like that's my biggest boss move. And then finding my community out here, because I really, you really can't make it on your own. You really have to have community. So that's what I believe my biggest boss move is. So
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so going into our next segment, it is how I do it segment. So I would love to know for you that you are a entrepreneur, you're a business owner. How do you, pitch projects? Like, how do you get your next big project? Is it just networking? Is it pitching? What's that process for you look like?
it's a combination of both. It's definitely networking, because this industry is who you know. But even though you know them, you still got to be able to get into that room and sell. So you need to make sure that you're prepared. So it's not just like, oh, my homegirl works here, my homegirl works there. No,
Mhm.
because when they're in those professional settings, they're going to hold you to the fire. So making sure that when you are pitching these projects, that you have the materials that you need. Do you have a pitch deck? Do you understand the story that you're pitching? Do you understand who you're pitching to? Because it's like, oh, let me go pitch my, film over here to Disney. Do you know who Disney's demographic is? If you have a show about if it's like a horror film, I wouldn't be pitching that to Disney. You know what I mean? So just understanding who you're pitching to, what the story is. Do you have your materials? And do you understand the story forwards and backwards? Do you have the logistics, worked out? And a lot of times people want to, give people an opportunity, but if they don't have that experience, then attach someone who does have the experience. Like, when we go into pitches, we try to not give people a reason to say no. So if they're saying, oh, we need someone more seasoned, we'll get someone that's more seasoned and we'll attach them to the project as an executive producer when we go in. Oh, do you have the script written? Yes, we do. Here's the script, by the way. Do you have a pitch deck? Yes, I do. Here's my pitch deck. And just, go in and be creative and then be okay with hearing no, because you're going to hear it. I've heard way more no's than I've heard yes. But just understand that a lot of times it's not about you. It's timing. It's this project maybe doesn't fit on this platform, but we would love to work with you. Just understanding the business side of it.
Love that.
But be
That
prepared,
was such
especially your personal.
Yeah, that was such good advice. Thank you for that. So, moving into our last segment, I asked 3 questions. What do you regret? What do you hope for? And what do you want to manifest and receive? So, for you, what is something that you regret?
I regret letting fear hold me back. There was a time when I was fearful because I didn't see it. There were not, people surrounding me with it. I regret letting fear hold me back because there's nothing to be afraid of. Jump out there, have a leap of faith, try it, fail, and then try again.
Yes.
So I regret letting fear hold me back.
And what is something that you hope for?
I hope that, kids who grew up in the same situation as me, who are former foster kids, can see that if she did it, that they can do it too. That's what I hope for.
And what do you want to manifest and receive?
Everything that God has for me, any lesson that I need to learn, any room that He would have me be in, any room that He would allow me to bring others in. Yeah, honestly, I just really want to be aligned and doing the things and telling the stories that are important. That's what's important to me. Just telling stories that's important, being aligned, and whatever it is that God would have for me. That's what I'm manifesting. And then just being able to greenlight projects and bring my friends and family with me, who are out here striving and working together. And like Issa said, networking across, like I want to create opportunities for others. I don't want people to have it as hard as I may have had it, or, people talk about nepotism all the time, to a degree, ain't nothing wrong with it. I wish I had a mom and daddy that was out here that could at least help me out or someone. So it's not always bad. So I feel like just having projects that, you can bring the people that are hardworking and creative and give people an opportunity. That's what I'm manifesting, to give others an opportunity.
Yes, love that. So thank you so much, Deshawn, for sitting down with me. You guys can check out Freaknik, the wildest story never, or the wildest party never told, on Hulu right now. And if you want to know more about Deshawn, look into our show notes. You can find all the information about her and everything that she's going to be doing in the future. Thank you so much. Appreciate the conversation.
Thank you. I had so much fun. Thank you for talking. Bye.